folks, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking all about play piercings. I've spoken about them before here on my YouTube and also over on TikTok and on my blog, and the overwhelming response that I got is y'all want to see me do kind of like a 101 and a deep dive all on these, so that is exactly what we are doing today. Play piercings are defined as any piercing that is designed to be removed after a short period of time. These are only piercings that are worn temporarily for photos, occasions, events, or ceremonies or rituals. These are not piercings that we're trying to keep in and leave in and heal. Let's get that straight from the start. So the whole purpose of the piercings we are talking about in today's video is that they will be removed afterwards. So these are not piercings that would heal long term. They are not designed to heal or be worn long term. They are just designed for the event, the occasion, whatever is happening that you're doing them for. You might be thinking to yourself, what is the point of getting a piercing if I'm just going to take it out after a couple of minutes or hours? And there is so many different reasons why folks do play piercings. There are as many different reasons for exploring play piercings as there are different people who choose to explore them. I personally tend to break play piercings down into two primary categories, a couple different subcategories beneath them. I am in no way saying that this is the only way you can break down play piercings, that these are the only types of play piercings that exist. This is just the easiest system I've found for categorizing the different types and goals of play piercings as a piercer who does do a lot of this work. The two main categories that I tend to break play piercings into are aesthetic play piercings and emotional play piercings. Now, aesthetic play piercings are the piercings that most folks are used to seeing and thinking of when it comes to play piercings. And I kind of further divide the aesthetic category into two separate sections. Piercings that are done with the insertion of jewelry and piercings that are done without the insertion of jewelry. Arguably, probably the most well-known, the most widespread play piercing that folks are familiar with is the corset piercing. These can be done all over the body, but are most commonly seen on the lower back or mid-back, like you see pictured here. And kind of like the name describes, it takes inspiration from the look of a laced-up corset. We do piercings and install captive bead rings or fixed bead rings, and then we lace them up like a pretty little corset. These were super popular in the 90s and early 2000s. They're kind of becoming popular again today, which I'm personally thrilled to see because I loved growing up seeing all the cool corset piercings done. But play piercings with jewelry are not just limited to corset piercings. That also includes things like doing temporary piercings that are designed just to be worn for a specific event or occasion with jewelry in them. Even things like this project that went viral on TikTok, where there were a bunch of barbells put into a lip and they were chained together for a sewed shut lip effect. These are all forms of play piercings that involve the use of jewelry. The other section within aesthetics is play piercings without jewelry installed. This is where we're taking needles, especially with hypodermic hubs still attached, to create beautiful patterns and designs, such as these here. We can even use them to do other decorative and fancy things, such as this photo here from when I did a flower crown with play piercings as part of a suspension performance that I was doing. Now, jewelry wasn't inserted in these, but we used the actual needles as the decorative element itself, attaching flowers to them to create this beautiful flower crown. Whether we're inserting jewelry or we are not, the goal behind these types of play piercings is largely motivated by aesthetics. We want to do something that looks beautiful, that looks interesting, that looks evocative, that promotes a response from our viewer. These are piercings that are being done primarily for photo shoots, special events, performances. There is an element of artistry here where we're really trying to showcase what's possible with the human body, what's possible with flesh and skin and needles, and creating a beautiful piece of art that can speak to all sorts of different themes, from just the technical skill that it took a piercer to pull something like this off, to representing deeper themes within our body and telling a story through pictures, artwork, performance, and piercings. But overall, again, the goal here is aesthetics. We want something that looks beautiful or looks a very certain way. That's the purpose of why we're doing these play piercings. Now, on the flip side, the other main category that I put play piercings in is an emotional or spiritual release. These are play piercings that can still be done with jewelry installed, although they're more commonly done just with needles. And these are play piercings where, yes, You might care about making it look really beautiful or really good, but the primary goal is not the aesthetics of the piercings being done. The primary goal is some form of emotional release, catharsis, ritual, or kink. Now, within this category of play piercings, I divided up 3 separate ways. First being kink. This is everything to do with needle play. This is a very common and popular practice within the kink community. There is lots of stuff we can do safely with needles when used correctly that can be very fun for exploring all sorts of different sensations in your body. The next section falls into ritual or spiritual-based play piercings, and there are hundreds of practices in different cultures around the world that incorporate acts of body piercing as part of spiritual worship, ritual, celebration, or coming-of-age rituals. And these piercings can be incredibly meaningful in different religions and different cultures. Perhaps the most notable and popular example of this is the festival Thaipusam, which is a festival in honor of Lord Murugan in Hindu belief. Pictures of this festival go viral online every year. You can see devotees with large spears, scimitars, and different objects pierced primarily through their cheeks, but sometimes other areas of the body. The belief is that doing this washes away and cleanses your sins from the previous years, and also reaffirms your devotion to Hinduism. It's an incredible, beautiful, sacred practice with hundreds of years of history and ritual, and one of the most beautiful and well-incorporated processes that includes temporary piercings like this that I can think of. I've also written about some Catholic and Christian blood rituals over on my blog if you want to check that out, which can sometimes overlap with the definition of play piercing, particularly when we consider those who have chosen to take the stigmata willingly and have done piercings through their hands and their feet as a method of worshiping and honoring Jesus Christ. There's 2 notable examples of religious rites and rituals that incorporate play piercing, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of others. That kind of crosses over into the last category that I give for play piercings under this umbrella, which is looking for emotional or spiritual release. I categorize this separately from play piercings done specifically for a religious rite or a cultural rite or a form of specific ritual, just because this category is a little bit more broad, it's a little bit more general, and it's not so closely tied into an organized religion or a set specific culture. See, while there are beautiful cultural and religious rituals that involve play piercing, and they can provide a lot of emotional healing, emotional release, catharsis, and just this overall wonderful sense within yourself, people can still get that same experience out of play piercing, separate from some form of religious ritual, rite, or specific event. And for many people from those religions and cultures and without, piercings can be used throughout all sorts of different times, separate from these very specific rites, to achieve some of that same feeling. For many people, the draw of play piercings is getting that emotional release that we often find after we get a piercing or a tattoo without having to have something to heal. A lot of times the release that we get from activities like play piercings is much larger because we're getting pierced many more times over a longer period of time, and we're having more of an intimate connection with our body, with our skin. We're very present in ourselves when we're being pierced and having these experiences, and it can bring up a lot of different emotions for people, and many folks find it to be a very healing, very empowering, very magical experience. I did do a whole video on my channel talking about this particular type of play piercing experience, a recent one that I did, and just how wonderful it was. This one was centered on gender affirmation and self-affirmation and self-worth and self-value, and I'm going to link that video here if you want to go check it out, because I think it does a really good job of explaining that particular type of play piercing and why it appeals so much to me, so much to others, and why it's just such a wonderful experience. But overall, I'm breaking play piercings down into those 2 primary categories: aesthetic play piercings and emotional play piercings, and then I'm further breaking them down when it comes to aesthetics into with or without jewelry, and when it comes to emotional release, the categories of kink, religion, and then just pure emotional or spiritual release. Now, play piercings don't have to only fit into one category or another. Many times, play piercings are an overlap and an amalgamation of all of the categories. We can sit down with the goal of doing a play piercing that is intended for a very specific kink or fetish event, but we can do so bearing in mind the aesthetics we want it to have and make a project that looks really beautiful, that photographs well, that we are super proud of, that also provides a kinky, fun, exciting experience for the person getting the piercings. Likewise, we can go into a piercing really expecting it to be focused on the aesthetics. You just want to get a corset piercing done for a convention or for a party that you're going to, and find yourself in a situation where you're having this big emotional release while you're getting these piercings done and going through this process. Maybe you only planned on signing up for play piercings because you thought they looked really cool and you thought it would be a cool thing to do, and now here you are having an experience that you were potentially not expecting to have that is very emotional, very vulnerable, and very raw. So all of the different reasons why folks might choose to do play piercings and all the different categories that we might try and define play piercings in all have a lot of overlap. There's a lot of gray areas and transitional spaces between them, but I find in order to talk about them accurately, having those different categories to break them down into is really, really beneficial. Now that we kind of understand some of the reasons why people might get play piercings and some of the experiences people are looking for out of them, let's discuss the actual process of getting play piercings. Now, the first step, and quite possibly the largest, is planning. Depending on how intricate of a project we're trying to do, how large of a scene, planning can be the most effort required to set up play piercings. We have to figure out a design for the piercings, calculate how we're going to make this design work and fit on the skin, and how many needles or pieces of jewelry we're going to need to pull it off. If we're doing something complicated involving lacing things up with corsets or different attachments, we have to figure out the logistics of how we're going to make this work. And all of this needs to be done with a lot of care and compassion for how much the client is going to be comfortable sitting for, what's going to be comfortable on the client's body, and how long they're being expected to wear these play piercings for, and making sure that everything is going to be functional and safe. Once you have a design down for play piercings, the process of actually getting them is probably one of the most straightforward parts. Now, this does look a little bit different from your normal piercing. Your piercer is still going to walk you through the process, let you know when to take that nice deep breath, let you know when you're being pierced, but things might happen at a slightly different and oftentimes more organic pace. When I'm doing play piercings for clients, I try to be very, very, very in tune with their emotions and how they're feeling while we're working. If they look like they're feeling great, they're feeling really comfortable, we're having a good time, I'm going to try and move pretty quickly through getting those piercings done. We're going to try and get the actual piercing part finished and over with, that way you can just enjoy having them. If it seems like clients are having a harder or more uncomfortable time, or if the piercings are bringing up some really big and intense emotions or feelings, we might slow things down a little bit. I'm going to take breaks and check in with my clients, see how they're feeling, see what sort of things are coming up for them, making sure they still feel good, they still feel comfortable. There's definitely a little bit more back and forth and a lot more communication between client and piercer when it comes to doing play piercings. There's much more bedside manner, much more checking in and ensuring that you're still in a good place, checking in on how your body is feeling, making sure that there's not anything that you need to be more comfortable. It is certainly a more intimate and vulnerable experience than just going into a studio and getting your nose pierced or your cartilage pierced. Once the play piercings are done, depending on what the goal for the setup is, we kind of go from there. If you're going to be wearing these piercings around at an event or for a whole night, cool, you're good to go. If we are just wearing these piercings for photographs, then we're going to go ahead and get the shot. And if we are just doing these piercings to have a really amazing experience with them, then that's it. Piercings are done. We can hang out, and whenever feels appropriate for the client, we can remove them and go from there. Removal is also pretty straightforward. We just kind of take out the needles, take out the jewelry, and clean up the area. Now, because we're oftentimes doing a lot of piercings over smaller or more limited spaces, there can definitely be a fair amount of bleeding with play piercings. That's kind of part of the experience for a lot of people. I definitely know for me it is. One of the most popular reasons why people do play piercings for emotional release is an element of bloodletting, and that can be incredibly empowering and incredibly cathartic if that's an experience that you seek out. Once the piercings are removed, we clean the area down thoroughly and you are good to go. Aftercare for play piercings is pretty minimal. It's keep the area clean, keep it dry. Depending on where we've done the piercings and how many there are, you may leave with some bandages on them, typically something like a Saniderm or a second skin that you would put on a tattoo. But many times, again, depending on what the piercings were and where they are, you may leave with no bandages at all. It's instructions to keep the site clean and dry. Aftercare for these is not like aftercare for an actual piercing because we don't have a whole piece of jewelry in the wound that we have to try and heal. We're just healing the little leftover teeny tiny pinpricks from where those needles were, and that tends to be pretty easy. Now, play piercings do run the risk of leaving scars. Since they're only left in for a very short period of time, I would say it's fairly uncommon that folks have scars that are really noticeable at all, but it's definitely possible that wherever you got your play piercings, you are going to have very, very small, like the size of a single pore, little white or dark brown scars left over from where those play piercings occurred. Now again, this doesn't happen to anyone, and I've had play piercings done in my forehead more times than I can count, and there's not a single scar left from them. But that cute little arm corset that I did with Margot, before my arm was tattooed, I totally had little scars from that left over. So please go into play piercing understanding that scarring is a potential risk. While it is a very low risk, make sure that if you do end up with scars from where your play piercings were, you're totally okay with them. Now there's a very important element of doing play piercings that I really want to mention since we're talking about it. You've heard me say that a lot of reasons why people get this are for events, occasions, conventions, parties, performances. Those are all great and fun reasons to do play piercings. However, if you are doing a play piercing at an event or occasion where other people will be around, whether it's a big event or a small event, no matter the case, you have to have a dedicated handler. And this is because when we're doing play piercings, we're working with blood and bodily fluids, and there is a huge risk for cross-contamination of other people who are there in attendance, of you and your play piercings. There is a lot that could go wrong with this. So when we're doing play piercings for, again, a convention, an event, a party, there needs to be a handler with the person wearing play piercings at all times. This person should always be wearing at least one glove, so if they need to quickly get in and blot or wipe something, they're ready to go. They should be prepared with gauze and saline to do any cleanup on the piercing as things go on, and that person's sole job is to just keep an eye on those piercings, make sure that they're not bleeding, make sure that there's no cross-contamination risk, and also make sure that the person wearing them is feeling good. No one feels lightheaded, no one feels dizzy, no one needs a snack or some water. It is so important to make sure you have a knowledgeable and experienced handler who's going to work with you while you're wearing these to make sure that you are safe and everyone else attending the event is safe. You see this the most often at conventions, particularly tattoo conventions, where corset piercings are being done, usually for competitions or just kind of to show off a piercer's skill level. But some clients will have me do play piercings for them for a Halloween party or a fetish party that they're going to or things like that. And if that's the case, they either need to have someone who will be their handler for that event, or they need to have me come out and be their handler for that event just to make sure that things stay safe. When we're working with play piercings, we are working with blood. Cross-contamination is a serious risk, and we need to be doing everything in our power to minimize that risk for ourselves and for the other people in attendance. I personally end up doing play piercings right around every 3 to 4 months. I just get this itch, just this need to want to bleed. I want to reconnect with my body in that way that play piercings brings me. I want that euphoria afterwards. I want that reminder that I am strong, that I am capable, that I can do difficult and uncomfortable and yes, even painful things, and I can do them with grace and with confidence and with love and compassion in my heart. And play piercings offer me all of that. I find so much strength and empowerment when I am doing play piercings, when I have them done. Very few things make me feel like such a tough badass than being able to take a couple needles and looking down and being like, damn, I did that. And for me, I've always had this very special, very intimate relationship with play piercings where they've really become a part of my exploration of self, a part of my exploration of gender, and a part of my relationship with my body and exploring what my body is capable of. they can be that for a lot of other people. So if this is something that you are potentially interested in, if this is something that you have thought about doing, I would definitely encourage you to find a reputable piercer in your area who offers these services and reach out and see if it's something that you'd really like to make happen. When you're looking for piercers who offer play piercing work, they should have a portfolio with examples of this work in it, and they should be willing to talk with you about how their approach to play piercings is. Some piercers are hyper-specialized, they only do aesthetic forms of play piercing. Their goal is not really to provide more emotional and intimate experiences. Other piercers are the opposite. They may focus solely on an intimate emotional experiences with play piercings, but they're not going to be doing big aesthetic projects, big corset piercings. That's not really the type of play piercing they look to offer. Just like anything else, you gotta find an artist that works with the vision and the experience that you are looking for. Definitely check to see people's portfolios of play piercings, talk to different artists and ask good questions about their approach to it, their bedside manner, why they offer it, what they love about it, and make sure you're going with an artist whose energy and vibe kind of matches you and matches what you're looking for to get out of this experience. Few things would make me happier in this world than more people practicing body play, exploring play piercings, and pushing the envelopes of what our bodies are capable of, learning where that edge lies for themselves, and taking some time to balance right on it and see what that feels like. It is such a magical, incredible feeling of closeness and oneness with your body, of the strength and the confidence to do something like this, and that little bit of magic that every single body piercing has. I love play piercings. I would love to do more of them, so if you are in the Pacific Northwest or in the Seattle area and you're interested in doing something more with play piercings, please do not hesitate to reach out. I really enjoy helping folks have these experiences. And if you have any other questions about play piercings or anything that wasn't covered in this video, go ahead and shoot me a message or leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for hanging out and letting me talk about this element of piercing that I am so unbelievably passionate about, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!